Hello, my name is Jim Betancourt, and I'm your host for another amazing edition of the Umpires in Black and White podcast. Today, we go behind the mask with Mr. Jack Oujo. Jack's an 8-year minor league umpire, founder of Oujo Wealth Strategies, and the author of the best-selling book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire. Let the show begin. Hello, Jim Betancourt here with Jack Oujo, our special guest today. Jack's a minor league umpire of about 8 years of service. He's retired from that profession quite some time ago, but has had the experiences that a lot of umpires never get to experience. And he has a message and a story that is valuable for everybody. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass the microphone over to Jack and let him kind of introduce himself so you guys can get a really good idea who this man is and everything that he's accomplished. Jack, welcome.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking to you today. My background is like you said, I'm 67 years of age right now, but back in the day, I officiated my way through college, Seton Hall University, and I decided to try out to be an umpire. I had an accounting degree, and I decided to go to umpire school and just try it. So when I'm at the age I'm at right now, I wouldn't have any regrets in life. And I went down to umpire school not expecting much, and they took me, and I ended up being one of the 13 people they gave jobs to out of going right to Philadelphia Phillies camp for spring training. And I started going through the minor leagues at a very rapid pace. I only did 2 years in A-ball. And by my fourth year, I was promoted to AAA. So I was on a really good path. They sent me to winter ball 6 times, 5 instructional leagues, and a Dominican Republic winter league. When we got to the 8th year, there was a power change that took place. Barney Deary, who was the head of the umpire development program, was kind of put on the shelf. New supervisors came in, and I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Let's just put it that way. And I ended up getting released. And I found myself 30 years of age with no money and a pregnant wife. And I ended up starting I ended up reinventing myself and started what became a multi-million-dollar business. I was the number one advisor in my firm using math for over a decade. And so I decided to write this book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire, where I take baseball fans and umpires through the minor leagues, what that's like, all the war stories, the promotions, the highs and lows, the reinvention process, and then what it's like to start a business, grow a business, and get out of the business, all in a pretty easy read that I was hoping people would get benefit out of. It's a very uplifting story. It's meant to be positive, not a poor me type of thing. It's like something bad happens, but then you get reinvented and something good happens and everybody lives happily thereafter, so to speak.
I see. So basically it's when a door shuts, another door opens, and took you down a course in life that's put you in a very good place currently. And that's awesome. That's a really good story, Jack. It's something, today's topic too as well, we're going to be discussing the current state of umpires in this country. We're having a umpire shortage. It's in a crisis state. I think the average age of umpires is 70, and the younger back in the 80s, I believe it was, the average age was in the 20s. So because of the abuse that umpires are facing, we don't have the numbers. And I think you shared a story of which you repeat it for me, about getting a letter and how it was like the cold fact in your face, and just basically you put in 8 years of your life, 10 years of your life committed to doing something, and then just without any warning, you get this disrespectful letter of termination. And could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I was in baseball pretty much the whole time Ronald Reagan was president of the United States, 1981 to 88. My first game was around the time he got shot, and I got released right at the end of his last term. I received a registered letter from the American Association League office with a check mark saying that you were released. At least my wife told me that's what it said. To this day, I've never even looked at it. And then I had to go out and try to go through the reinvention process. I think they realized they screwed up with the way they went about it, because about 2 weeks after I was released, Mike Fitzpatrick, who was an executive with the Umpire Development Office, called me and said, "You know, Jack, we really like you. It was the major leagues that didn't want you, and at this time anyway, we didn't want you to spend a long time in the minor leagues before you got there because there's very few openings. We want you to stay on and become a supervisor. Take you off the field and have you evaluate umpires." And I said I was not interested in that because we were about to have a baby. I said I was willing to travel to be in baseball. And I said I would entertain an offer from one of the local major league teams or the commissioner's office, but I was not willing to do that. So I did leave on good terms. My first job out of baseball with my accounting background, I was hired by Ernst & Young, EY, and they did the audit for Major League Baseball. And I think the fact that I had the umpiring background helped me get the foot in the door with EY.
I see. That's quite a story. It's something. It's just not how it is a life-changing moment, but it's something that it just literally takes you and makes you rethink, reset, do a reset, and create a whole new life for yourself, like you did. And that turned out to be probably they did you a favor in retrospect.
In my case, I'm much better off. I mean, we've lived this especially the last 20 or 30 years. We've lived this fantasy life existence here. We've been blessed financially. We've been blessed with amazing children, and in my case, and my children would be the first one to agree, especially my third child, who said we probably wouldn't have had him if Daddy would have been successful in baseball. But no, in my case, I'm better off. It still hurts. You put 8 years into something, you don't want to accept a loss. But in my case, much better off. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to take a little bit of a break right here, real quick, and we'll be right back. Hello, welcome back. Here today with Jack Oujo, and minor league umpire, author of I'm Too Smart to Be an Umpire, and a multi-million-dollar business developer, entrepreneur, who's in the financial advising and took his turn out from minor league umpiring into a multi-million-dollar business, and so everything works out good in that regard. But we're going to be talking about the current state of umpires in this country, and there's issues that umpires deal with today in 2026 that didn't exist 30 years ago, and it is a abuse, disrespect. It's something that is driving the umpire numbers down. It's what's preventing young people from getting involved, and it needs to be discussed further. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that topic, Jack.
In no particular order, I think there's many factors going on in our society that are driving this problem of a shortage of officials, the abuse of officials at the lower levels, both physically and verbally. I think you have an unintended consequence of replay at the major league level is that at the amateur level, you have very inexperienced umpires, and the tolerance for a missed call, it just isn't there anymore. Because if you could tell with your cell phone if somebody's safe or out, or a ball or strike at a kid's game when somebody makes a mistake, well, just go fix it. This shouldn't happen. The fact that people have never umpired before that are attending the games have zero empathy for these kids and other volunteers or people that aren't getting paid much for working these games. There's just not a lot of tolerance level. We also have issues today with the affordability factor of how much it costs people to go to college and get their lives started. And I think a lot of parents view playing sports as a lottery ticket for college. This is a shot. If little Johnny or Janie in softball are really good athletes, then I don't have to pay for college, or I can get a big break on it. And your call is taking away my little scholarship, if you will. So I think that has something to do with it. The advent of social media, where people are going online, it's mind-boggling to me watching these videos online of how officials are being shamed and questioned on calls in games where there's 10-year-olds playing and there's close plays at the plate. Did the umpire get it right or wrong? I mean, are you kidding me? Is this what we're talking about? I mean, we're not talking about bunt defenses. We're not talking about how to execute a cutoff. We're not talking about how to hit. We're talking about whether in a youth baseball game, an umpire got a play right. And then when the violence is taking place, they're asking, well, he was safe. He was out. So the violence is justified. It's freaking insane. And when you hear announcers talk about coaches that get thrown out of games and say you have to admire the passion of that coach or manager for getting thrown out of a game, that is at a professional level. Yet I think coaches at youth levels see this behavior and think it's acceptable. And I'm coming from a place, by the way, after I was done with professional baseball, I officiated college baseball. I coached a state championship little league team. Okay, so I've been out there dealing with officials from a coach's point of view. There's no reason to act that way. Okay, when we won the state championship, I don't think I ever said to an umpire, "Where was that pitch?" Okay, or something along those lines. Okay, the lack of disrespect to me is just mind-boggling, and it's on so many levels. And there is nobody stepping up to the plate and saying this is unacceptable behavior, and it should not be happening at certain levels. In my book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire, I mention about how I think it is acceptable behavior at the professional level and at the D1 level of college sports, where coaches need to get thrown out or act like idiots to get their players to play harder and show them that they love them. Not acceptable in my view at the lower levels, or you're going to be losing officials, and things are just going to get worse and worse.
Couldn't agree more. Every umpire at some level has experienced exactly the violence, the abuse, either to themselves or to their partners. And it's something that at the lower levels, as you say, it is just mind-boggling how these people can justify this perception that it's okay. There's no other profession on this planet where anybody is yelled at when they're on the job working. We umpires, when we're on the field, we're working. We're working to get the calls right. We're working on game management. And it's something that's all we're doing. We're our field mechanics, where are we supposed to be? Are we in the right position? We are working our butts off from the time we step on the field till the time we walk off. And it would be, the analogy is just like this. Okay, so your profession, Jack, you ended up going into, you're an accountant. On any day, did anyone ever walk into your office and go, Are you blind? You're better than that. Did anybody scream and cuss at you
Not
ever?
once. Not once.
Not
Not once. And I managed millions and millions of dollars when the stock market was down 40%. There's there might be people nervous about what's taking place. I took a lot more abuse for calling somebody out on a 3-2 pitch than I ever did because somebody's money was down 10%. Let's put it that way.
exactly. That's the point. And why is it accepted that they can scream and yell and cuss at umpires and just make asses out of themselves in the process, but yet be demeaning and disrespectful to a person trying to work and do their job and just trying to do the best that they can? And as you said, I believe there is definitely it's something that is mimicked and comes down the chain from the up Major League Baseball. It's done there and it's accepted there. Unfortunately, I think that has to change too. I think it's 2026 and that type of abuse in a working situation. Those umpires are working and they're trying to manage the game. And I've seen Aaron Boone hundreds of times, players just one after the other demean the umpire. And then just not, once they get ejected, then it even gets more insane. And that stuff has to be,
here's where
needs to be toned down.
Here's where I'll depart from you with all due respect. I get what you're saying 100%. Okay. I really do. What I do know, having been at both levels, being in pro sports, I know if Aaron Boone doesn't go out and act like an idiot, Aaron Judge is not going to play as hard for him and he's going to end up getting fired. And if Aaron Judge gets called out on the third strike and Boone gets thrown out of a game, he's going to say, yeah, I like the way Skip stood up for me and had my back. Okay, I'm going to play hard for him. What the public doesn't see is that Aaron Boone and that umpire probably have a professional relationship that people don't see. Aaron Boone and that umpire are going to see each other time and time again. They may laugh about it at some point in the future. Okay, the public doesn't see that. They also don't see Aaron Judge or Aaron Boone say, hey, I'm doing that at this level, and here's why I'm doing it, but it's not acceptable at the other levels. It isn't. You never hear anybody say that, okay? And that's where we depart. That's where there's a disconnect. There's nobody making public service announcements, if you will, or getting in front of the media going, it's okay at the pro level, not okay at the other level. And
a great point.
That's what I think, you know.
That's a great point. I think the word that you're looking for is a disclaimer.
Right.
This is partly entertainment, plus it's also motivational skills used at the pro level. This is not to be used down at 10-year-olds. That statement is missing, and they need to, at the upper levels, management, administration of MLB, they need to get their act together and address this issue because they're poisoning the lower levels of baseball, youth baseball, and umpires. It's a hellish environment. Umpires are being beaten, put in the hospital, and it's not funny or a joke any longer. It's something that's deadly serious, and they need to address it as such.
I think one thing that can be done now here in New Jersey, I'm in New Jersey in the summer, and I also coached a high school team in New Jersey for 5 years, where coaches had to go through training on this issue of sportsmanship and everything. And I think it was a very good program for coaches to go through. And I know I would have an amazing, what I would call parent meeting before the season started. And at my parent meeting, where I laid down the law on how things are going to work, because coaches are getting abused by parents left and right too. When we umpire, we might take abuse during the game. Coaches get abused. They never know when the email's coming from a parent that's upset that Johnny got taken out of the game or something along those lines. But at my parent meeting, I would be able to say to the parents, I was an umpire. I was at the professional level. If an umpire is making a mistake, I can see it more than all of you people put together. And I am not going to go out there and give the umpire a hard time. Maybe umpire to umpire, I could say something behind the scenes, and only if I'm asked, by the way. I would never go out to an umpire and go, hey, I was in pro ball. You should be doing. Never did I do anything like that. But I would say to my parents, These umpires are out here taking classes. They're here because they love the game and they're working hard. And the only two words I want you saying to an umpire are thank and you. That is it. You are not to yell and scream at them. You're not to abuse them. If there's a close play and it doesn't go our way, we need to get over it. And if the umpire is calling pitches a certain way, we need to make the adjustment. That's how we're going to win. And we'll win within the realm of sportsmanship. So I don't want to be hearing it. There's going to be oohs and ahs on close plays and things along those lines. That's part of the game. But if it went beyond that, I put a stop to it and I let them know this is not acceptable behavior. Now, I did that as a coach. My parents were controlled. When I see parents out of control, it's a coach that doesn't have control over his team or his parents or a league that hasn't dictated down. And I think from the leagues that people are in, I think a well-orchestrated parent meeting, how officials are to be talked to. Okay, I've done coaches clinics where I'm like, talk to an umpire, call him Jim, don't call him Blue. Start with that. When you take out the lineup card, write down the umpires' names and start addressing them by that. That's a good way to start things off. I don't think people know how to talk to umpires. I really don't. And I've been around some amazing coaches that know baseball inside and out, that what they think officials are thinking is moronic.
Yeah.
There's such a disconnect. I'm sorry.
All well said. And I think what you just shared, I was hitting on MLB. It falls on every level of baseball going down. College does a relatively good job compared to everybody else. They have some of the strictest fight rule language in the rule book that there is. And their policies that they changed in the last 10 years have really made a positive impact, and a good one for that. But high school, NFHS has done zilch on this issue. There is no compliance required of coaches or parents for training to interact with umpires. And Little League, same thing. It's just basically a hodgepodge, a flip of the coin. Oh, we did this or we did that, or that organization does this every 3 years. No, there has to be a structured program that works specifically to address this issue, because if they don't do this, we're not going to have umpires. It is a very serious situation.
It's a very serious situation. One thing, and again, because I've been at all the levels, and this is recent, not just the 1980s, recently, I umpired college baseball for a few years when I had an itch to officiate again. And I noticed in the NCAA, one thing they had that I thought was very good is there was always a game administrator. And I remember being at Wagner. I think Wagner was playing Rutgers one game, and the stands are right behind home plate. And I had a big guy that must have weighed 400 pounds behind me, dropping F-bombs and all that other sort of stuff. And in between innings, I found the game administrator, and he came out, and I go, don't look now, but see that guy that looks like he swallowed the table behind me? I go, he needs to go. Okay. And they're like, all right, I'll get rid of him. And I'm like, all right, it didn't come from me, but he needs to go. By the next half inning, he needs to be out of here. And I remember Joe Lotario, the Wagner coach, came up to me in between innings. He goes, Jack, did you just get rid of a fan? And I said, yeah, he's more of a pain in the ass than you are. I said, you're not paying me enough money, Joe, for me to be hearing this. Now, I did not turn around and go, you, the big heavy guy, you're out of here, like I see in some of these videos. Okay, this was done where nobody knew what was taking place, and there was a game administrator, so there was a tool in place. And in local youth sports, it could be the coach, but in a low profile way. And I would let the abuse come, but in between innings, that it was over. Okay. And if it wasn't over, we're going to stop the game, and it has to be taught to umpires that this has to be done in a low profile way to not make the situation worse when you're doing your situation handling. And I think that can be done as well.
I posted on Facebook recently about asked the question, when is it okay for umpires to address an AD, contact them, etc. And it was amazing. There's the consensus, Jack, that's out there for umpires is, oh, we don't contact the ADs. The umpires don't contact the ADs. And and there was a few that said, oh yeah, we do it all the time and there's a good communication. Now, I've contacted ADs and it's been effective. It is, in fact, had an issue where the field had a leaky sprinkler, and the coach I said, you have any material to put on that to soak up that mud and water? And he goes, no. And so we warned the players, just noted what it was at, and continued to play. The next, I had the same team, same field, the next Friday. This was a Tuesday game. I contacted the AD. I said, hey, there's some wet weather coming, and you have a leaky sprinkler on the infield. If you could remind the coach to kind of get some water absorbent on there before, and to take care of that wet spot, it would be a really good idea. That Friday, it was fixed.
Good.
And it's something that athletic directors want to do, things to help the teams and the players and the umpires to have a better experience playing the game. They want it to be good, and they want that feedback. And I think your scenario of how you handled it so discreetly, it's not about making a scene. It's not about adding to that guy being a jackass. He's already done that. Everybody knows he's a jackass. You don't want to bring him into the limelight. You want him removed. And I would recommend that same concept that you did to every umpire out there listening to this podcast, because it works effectively and it shuts people down.
A lot of it comes down to training too, or I think they could be simple videos that can be put out. And again, to coaches, parents, umpires, what is allowed, not allowed. The thing I love about baseball, and again, when I coach baseball, I said to the parents, I go, if your kid comes to me, why did you bunt in the third inning? Why did you take that pitcher out? I go, that's part of the fun of the game. Second guessing in baseball is part of the game. Second guessing a call is part of the game. Where we cross the line is when you say, well, I brought Johnny into the game because his mother baked cookies for us after the last game. Okay. Or the umpire called that because they're cheating for the other team. Like this insanity in terms of the way people think. And I don't know. I think people just need to be educated and trained. Once they get it, they'll fall in line. Okay. My parents didn't give umpires a hard time because they were coached up on how to behave. Okay. What's acceptable, not acceptable. And again, you got to remember at these younger youth sports levels, they're new to being sports parents too. I mean, they may not have ever had an 8, 9, or 10-year-old. It might be their first kid, and they think this is what they're supposed to do, like abuse officials and act like idiots. And it's really bad. And I've seen the soccer videos. It's not just baseball. It's going on all over the place. And it's really unfortunate, really.
It is. And it's something also, we're independent contractors. So we don't have representation in really any capacity as individuals. And the umpires are so disconnected from the actual gameplay and getting to that game. We're disconnected from in a way from the association, because it's just a association we just pay dues to. We're independent contractors. We're disconnected. The associations are disconnected from the state associations. We really just work for them. We are just a contractor in that regard. Right. We're disconnected from the NFHS. They're working with the schools. And CIF and all the state organizations. So they feel like they have no obligation to create this training that is being required of the parents, the coaches, and the players. Right. And that's where that disconnect is preventing what you were talking about from happening, that this education process, hey, these umpires are people. They're hardworking people. They're out here doing the best that they can. They are to be respected. And that message isn't being provided. And it's really a sad thing. And it allows Little League, Incorporated, is totally disconnected from their umpires. They don't even get paid, a lot of them. And so because of that, they don't feel any sort of, like I say, obligation. Those are just the umpires. Yeah, just go ahead and yell at them or do whatever you want. And it's greenlighting that mentality. And the results, we're ending up in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. And it's coming from, and some of this abuse comes from, it's really interesting, coming from people who are really respected in our society. They're coming from leaders of towns, council people, police officers who are in a business where you want to be respected. I've seen several police officers that have been arrested for assaulting officials. And it's just, it boggles the mind that people that are otherwise pillars of society are doing this behavior. And I just think it's really unfortunate. I really do. And I taught a youth umpire program in our town here for 20 years. I have 3 children, a girl and 2 boys. Both of my boys went through the program. They umpired for years. And some of the behavior that I saw was just really, really awful. And the kids did a good job too. I mean, but they're children, there's 15-year-old kids umpiring games, and grandpa out in the stands doesn't see that the 15-year-old kid is behind that mask that you're yelling at. And I just don't. I wrote in my book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire, that when I trained youth officials, I said, where the place that this is coming, I said, it helps you deal with abuse when you see the place that it's coming from. At the professional level, they're protecting their players, or they're showing their players that they love them and they're fighting for them. At the youth sports level, the parents and grandparents are showing their children that they love them, and that that's why they're yelling at you. When you're taking the abuse, you're not experienced enough to realize that it's not personal. But the parents and grandparents need to be taught that is not acceptable behavior at this level. And I would say to my parents, you don't have to show your children you love them by yelling at an official. It's really not acceptable, and you should not be doing it.
And something similar to that line of thinking, the coaches at MLB level, while you could say, yeah, they want to motivate their team, and they're out there trying to just get things, get the bat started. Maybe they're hadn't had a hit for 4 innings. The other side of that is that they also, the old school line of thinking. It's part of the entertainment. Right. It's part of the game, and it adds a dimension to the game, entertainment value. And that was the old line of thinking in addition to just motivating the team. But I think that it has gone beyond that. Even at MLB level, it's gone beyond both of those components. Right. When John Boy makes a living on shouting out expletives that the coach is barking at the umpire to his face repeatedly, and there's something wrong. The John
Boy videos, which are interesting, has done a major disservice to amateur officials, because it's implied that we watching these videos are above you, that the umpire is a lesser class of human being. This is a real easy job that we could probably be doing it, okay, but we don't choose to do that because we're better than you, and we're just going to make fun and pick on you. And all that is in there, and whoever's running that is making a lot of money off of abusing other people. They've done a real social disservice. While they've provided very good entertainment, they've provided a really bad disservice to youth sports, because it helps perpetuate the abuse at the amateur level, in my view.
But it's being provided because there's nothing being done to intervene and change it. And I watched a umpire the other day. The poor guy was begging the coach to stop. Please stop. please stop. And he just kept going. And
Right.
there's got to be a line somewhere. There's got to be some sort of intervention where this that's stupidity and ignorance of that person sitting there being violent and abusive towards somebody on a 10-15 minute spiel that should be some sort of intervention at some point.
That's the reason why it can't be tolerated, because somebody at the level I was at in professional sports, I know how to handle coaches and manage. The worst of them, I bring them on and I'll be able to handle it, and I'll keep them in line, especially over the longer term. People that are learning how to officiate don't have training in that basic situation handling. Okay. And I mean, when I taught umpiring, I said, you let coaches hang themselves. Okay. I've given you your say. I'm going to turn around. If you follow me, you throw yourself out of the game. Allow, when somebody puts the monkey on your back, get it off your back and put it back on them. Allow them to hang themselves. Okay. I don't think I ever ejected anybody out of a game. They ejected themselves. Okay. By their behavior. And just because they're having a bad day doesn't mean I need to have a bad day, or the umpires I'm training need to have a bad day. Those things need to be taught. They need to be learned, and they're learned through experience. People at these levels, Little League, all this other stuff, everybody's learning. The coaches are learning, the kids are learning, the umpires are learning. That's why you're at this level. You're trying to figure things out. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. But when it goes over the line with violence and too much abuse there, again, we've gone over a line in this country, and a lot of people that are in responsible positions are not sounding the alarm like we are right now. Like stop doing this. And the commissioner of baseball is somebody that could be doing something. Commissioner of baseball hasn't done a damn thing. Okay. Major league managers haven't done anything. Professional sports announcers have not ever said anything about it. It's almost like it's encouraged, and it's wrong. And just a couple people need to step up and say something about it. I said the ESPN announcer, Tim Kirchin, okay, who covers baseball, does a great job. Now, that's a guy that respects officials. I found out recently his son umpires. And I'm like, okay, that's the reason he gets it. Mike Breen, the NBA announcer, you could tell he respects officials. He went through officiating training. That's why there's some ounce of empathy there. He gets it, okay? But the vast majority of them don't, in my view.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's something these younger levels, everybody's learning. And unfortunately, also they're watching Major League Baseball. And like you said, you toss somebody, right? I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of times at the Major League level, they get tossed, and then they go out and continue the tirade for another 10 minutes or longer. And that's what they're teaching these younger levels, that's acceptable, and it's not. That is the importance of why these the administration and executives and the people in power need to step up and make a statement that abusing umpires is not acceptable. And
there were several times in my, and sorry to interrupt you, Jay, there were several times in my professional career where I had managers say, throw me out. I need to get thrown out. Okay. Jack,
I've been there too.
Throw me out so I can show my player that he had his back. It's done at that level. It doesn't really need to be done. And a lot of times the manager, by the way, the one thing we haven't talked about is feels like he's the representative of a city, if you will, a fan base. So if the manager doesn't get thrown out 3 or 4 times a year, if the fans and season ticket holder base turn on the manager, the owner is left with no choice but to fire him. So that's why they do it. Tim Cheetah told a story recently where he said he threw Bobby Cox out of a game. Okay. And he was thrown out of the game in maybe the 3rd or 4th inning. And Tim went to use the restroom in like the 7th or 8th inning. And he saw Bobby Cox back there having a cigar and having an adult beverage. And Bobby Cox looked at him and go, "Hey, Timmy, I'm watching the game on TV. You're doing a hell of a job back there." And Tim goes, "Well, you didn't say that 4 innings ago when I threw you out of the game." And he goes, "Well, it's Maddox. I have to get thrown out. I have to protect him." Like it's, and they're, the two of them are nobody's thinking anything of it. But the public watching thinks there's this hate thing going on where if they ever
Understood.
saw each other in public, there'd be a fist fight when it's the furthest thing from the truth. It's everybody. The umpire did his job. The manager did his job. Everybody did their job. That's part of it. Now, at amateur sports, they have a fight. They're never going to speak to each other again, and somebody might be going to jail. So it's a different animal.
Yes, understood. Well, say, Jack, we're going to take a little break and then we'll come back and finish this wonderful talk. I think we've really hit some good topics that could help umpires around the country. Everybody would benefit once we get the powers to be on board.
I hope so. We're trying to move the ball forward here.
Absolutely. All right, Jack, let's take a break. We were discussing in the last session the problems associated, actually, the word respect was what we were discussing, and the lack of it that umpires receive on the field with the players, coaches, fans, and the part of the pinpointing the issues and drilling down. And one of the things that we discussed was that coaches have a huge part to play in maintaining control over the players, the fans, and also how they interact with umpires also has a huge impact on the players and fans. And a lot of the problems that we see, particularly at high school and youth level, are from the players and fans and coaches. But yet coaches do have a huge part to play. And we were discussing that issue. And now I'd like to go into solutions for those topics. And Jack, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Sure. I'm a person that believes in going after there's lots of solutions and they all need to be done. One not being one more important than the other. I think it needs to come from the media. Every time a sportscaster says you have to admire the passion of that manager or coach for supporting his player, those people need at some point to filter in the fact that doesn't belong at the amateur level. Managers and coaches at higher levels of sports need to let people know that that's not acceptable at other levels of sports. There needs to be better training of coaches. The state that I'm in, where I coached high school baseball in New Jersey, you had to go through a training session before you could become a certified coach. And more things that training need to be done in terms of communication with umpires. I've done clinics with coaches where I've said things, when you get the lineup card meeting, write the name of the umpires down. Stop calling them blue. There's nothing more amateurish than calling an umpire blue. Call them by their first name. How you address people. What to do when a call doesn't go your way. How do you handle that adversity? Just in terms of how you coach kids. How do you handle an umpire making a mistake? Was something I taught our kids. I would say we have to pick up the umpire when the umpire makes a mistake. That's part of the game. And letting people know that what is involved in this job and how you're losing people. The fact that there's fans that actually go to games thinking that one umpire is cheating for another team is one of the most ignorant things I've ever seen in my life. I let my parents know the umpires are out here because they're looking to make some extra money. It's not a lot of money after all the training they go through and the equipment they have to buy. They're here because they love the game. and they love the game just as much or more so than you do. And that respect has to be given to them. And I would tell our parents, they are going to make mistakes the way I'm going to make mistakes, the way the kids are going to make mistakes. We're not getting major league umpires out there. And even if we did, they're going to make mistakes. So everybody needs to understand that. And you're not going to, and it comes from this place. And I've taught this at youth umpire clinics for many years. The reason why these parents and grandparents are yelling at you is to show their kids that they love them. And when they're being taught on how to be parents and grandparents, they have to be taught, don't yell at the umpires to show your kids that you love them. There's other ways to do that. This isn't one of them. And that's where it's coming from. The yelling at you is coming from supporting their players. There's other ways to do that. And that just is something that needs to be taught and taught and taught and understood and understood and understood. And it needs to be come at from many different directions.
I wholeheartedly agree. It is something. It's for a national impact to make it better for umpires and baseball in general, and the fans and the coaches, for everybody. It has to be an effort made by the associations at the highest level, these MLB, Little League Incorporated, all these higher level entities with not only the resources, but with the resources, the funds that can make things happen, because nothing happens without money. And they have to, I think the other issue that the disconnect is, there's no type of awareness being made to them directly, and they feel no responsibility at that point. Because why? It's not laying at their doorstep. Well, it's laying at the doorstep of the umpires that are working the games. It's laying at the doorstep of the coaches that are coaching, but nobody with the ability to actually impact it in a positive way that don't have are involved in a solution.
Yeah, I think there's shaming on the internet that's going on, which I find to be awful. These videos showing volunteer umpires making a mistake in a game that they're going viral. I think it's a freaking disgrace. And again, in my book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire, I devote 2 chapters to this subject of how bad it is. Again, teaching youth umpires, I've seen their own coaches that they used to play for going after them, physical abuse that's taken place, people going to jail. And sometimes it's police officers that are going after, like people in authority, mayors of towns that are getting arrested for going after people, former professional athletes that go into coaching youth sports, going after officials. It boggles the mind, the level of bad behavior that takes place. And maybe it's shaming is a way to do it. But the only people getting shamed right now in social media are the umpires. The other people aren't getting shamed out there. And I think it's really sad, because people are leaving the sport. You're seeing games being officiated with only one umpire. It's just a disgrace, in my view.
I agree, and all those negative consequences have results. And unfortunately, it's the fact that average age of high school umpires now, I think, is close to high 50-year-old is the medium age. There's no umpire shortages. It's not good, but it's something that the ability to address the issue and look at it in a way that so that everybody understands everybody's got a role to play. Everybody makes mistakes. When you make a mistake in life, nobody comes up and yells at you. That's not the way that life should be. But when you get on a baseball field, that for whatever reason, they feel like they're obligated, even if they're right, they get yelled at. So, but go ahead, Jack.
But I think there's psychological tools that can be taught to coaches in how to deal. Like when I taught kids, I had one pitcher on my team. I'll call him Johnny K because I don't want to say his last name. Whenever he thought an umpire missed a pitch, he would throw his arms up in the air.
I've never experienced that.
We never seen that. And we had practices where I would have him practice on the mound where he'd throw balls right down the middle, and I'd have one of the kids umpire behind the plate and purposely call every pitch a ball, okay, until he got past it. And I used to put a line in front of the pitcher's mound just with his toe, and I say, I want you to cross this off if you think the umpire missed the pitch. Not in a way that the umpire notices, because you'll show him up and get thrown out, but something to exit out of your mind and go on to the next pitch. I taught catchers that when an umpire misses a pitch, something comes over the inside corner, bring the next couple pitches on the outside corner and get the umpire to get his game back. Okay. If you think an umpire, how to even ask. Okay. Like I taught kids, I would teach my catchers, if you think an umpire missed a pitch, wait a few pitches, wait till there's another batter up and say, that first pitch on the last guy, I kind of like that one. Where did you have that? That would be a nice way to do it. Okay. When you find out the name, again, find out the name of the umpire and have a conversation, and never hold your glove, never show up the umpire. Use these things because you're creating relationships. Again, I was coaching to win games, but I learned that honey works a lot better than vinegar, okay, as a coach. Okay. And anytime I saw another coach yelling at an umpire, I realized I had an edge here. And I don't think coaches realize that. Not only are they being unsportsmanlike, they're hurting their own team's chances of winning a game. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because they're losing respect from the officials. And there's something in an umpire's subconscious, in my view. So in other words, Jim, if you're umpiring a game and one coach is giving you a hard time, I think subconsciously, at least, you're aware, I don't want both coaches yelling at me. And I don't think a lot of people realize that it's hurting their team. They're not intimidating the umpire. They're hurting their own chances of winning a game. And when it's taught at that level, you know, that this is not helping you, it's hurting you, maybe that'll get through to them. Okay. If you want to win, this isn't helping. Okay. If you want to raise better athletes, there's ways to go about doing this. And that is no longer part of the game at the professional level, because you have the box, you have the computer, but it is part of the game at the amateur level. And these things can be taught. They can be taught by smart coaches at clinics. And the coaches then in turn, again, need to tune up their parents and grandparents on how to behave at these events.
I agree wholeheartedly, Jack. Something that I think of often is, why are you saying and doing things that make somebody who's out on a field working a baseball game, umpiring, why are you doing things to distract them so that they can do their job worse? Because it doesn't help. As you just pointed out, it does not help. I had the textbook of the world's best coach and the best team play a game against another coach and fans that were just the opposite. They were just like you were talking about. They were saying, talking, chirping, yada, yada, yada. The other coach, just the opposite. And the other thing that it does, particularly the coach, mainly it's the coach that triggers a lot of this. Triggers it with his players. He triggers it with the fans. And what happens then? Are the kids focused on picking up the next grounder and turning a double play? Are they focused on getting a base hit and game-winning base hit? No. What are they thinking about? What's this umpire going to do to me?
Well,
and that doesn't help.
I mentioned in Too Smart to Be an Umpire, where I quote Bobby Knight, of all people, who wrote a book called The Power of Negative Thinking, and where he mentioned but it's true in that his point was that he thought basketball games were lost rather than being won. And if you look from a coaching point of view, if you look at a baseball game, if you take any box score and you take out the worst inning that a team had defensively and throw that out, there's a pretty good chance they might have won the game. And when you break down coaching, okay, if you look at what happened in that one bad inning that a baseball team gave up, it gave up 5 runs, let's say, chances were there was an error, a compounded error. Somebody made a mistake out there that got compounded because they let down. And the mistake could be from an umpire. I mean, when I coach kids, I said, when an umpire makes a mistake, you now have an excuse. We now have an excuse. It's the umpire's fault. So there's a natural letdown. And they have to be taught this, that they have to be aware if the umpire makes a mistake or your teammate makes a mistake, there is a natural letdown. And now our character's about to be tested in terms of how we handle that. Can we overcome the mistake made by the umpire? Can we overcome the mistake made by our shortstop that dropped a pop fly? Can we overcome the mistake of somebody that wasn't in the right spot where they were supposed to be? That is part of coaching kids in terms of dealing with adversity. All this can be spun into something very positive. Everything that's very negative that's taking place in our society today, if it was taught properly, this can all be spun around to have better behavior, better coaching, better kids. Okay, which is the reason why you're out there. Is, again, the kids I coached are now in their 30s, okay, living pretty good lives, and I'm very proud of them. That's why you're raising them. That's why you're having them play sports, and so that they learn teamwork, how to deal with adversity, how to deal with things not going their way. That's the whole purpose behind this freaking thing, and that needs to be pointed out to people, in my view.
Absolutely, it's something that winning and losing is what seems to drive the narrative in a lot of these games. And
to interrupt, you can win and be a good person. Okay, you can win and not be a jerk towards officials. Your chances are better,
Jack. And you can win even when you lose.
Yes,
you can win even when you lose. There's something to be gained from everything, both good and positive, and good and negative. So if you take the negative stuff and you look at it, you reevaluate it to turn it into something positive that you can do better the next time. That's a win. And that's all about mentality, how you think about things. And when these people get so focused in a narrow channel that they can't open their minds to see a different way, this is how we got here. This is why we're here.
Every good coach has a losing speech, in that it's okay to lose if you learn from a loss. It's never okay to lose if you don't learn from a loss. And I remember having teams that I coached where I'd show them the 1927 Yankees, one of the greatest teams in baseball history, and I'll show the losing streaks they went on, okay, during that very successful season, and how they had to overcome adversity. This is all part of the teaching process. And it's a teachable moment for umpires too. When we make mistakes, how do we handle the mistake as umpires? Do we let it ruin our game, or do we get over it and move on to the next pitch? So there's a lot of teachable moments in here for all of us. But the behavior of abuse and physical abuse is never okay. It just isn't. And that needs to come from higher ups who are looking at with the death of Bobby Cox. They'll show again these arguments. And again, today on social media, I saw 3 major league umpires came out and said Bobby Cox treated us as nice as he could be when the game wasn't on. And the public doesn't know that. There's not going to be any articles about that. But Mark Hirschbeck, Tim Cheetah, Gary Darling, all 3 of them came out and said that today. Okay, that it was nothing personal. Okay, and this is somebody that got thrown out of more games than anybody. Okay, how many people in youth sports that are arguing with somebody in a 10-year-old game would say, "Hey, let's go to the bar and have a beer after the game"? That's not happening. They're making that personal. Okay, parents are making it personal. They're not. It's just not good. Just not good.
And I've shared this before on this podcast, and my own personal solution to the on-field situation of the spectators and fans being disrespectful. That's what it is. It's just disrespectful to shout out over the top of everybody during the game. You're horrible. This is that. This timeout. Coaches, come here. I don't know whose fan that was. I want it stopped. We're not going to throw another pitch until you take care of it. So empowering umpires to be able to resolve those situations, to at least to prevent it from escalating. That right now is very important for working umpires, because for the new guys, younger umpires that don't know that, they'll sit there and they will literally take that abuse in, and then it just escalates. And so younger, newer umpires, you need to call time and make coaches address that issue and resolve it and make it go away.
Another alternative to that, this is something that they do in college baseball. And again, I taught a youth umpire clinic for 20 years in Brick, New Jersey. And it's something we implemented in Brick, New Jersey, is there was a game administrator for every game. And the way I would teach our youth umpires, if a parent was getting out of line, in between innings, we would eat it until in between innings and get the game administrator and have that person removed. Okay. And then the coach was put on notice that's coming from his team and he needed to tune up his parents that this is not acceptable behavior. I didn't want the kids to say, time out, you, the big fat guy in the top row, get out of here, something like that. Because we thought the situation could be made worse by other parents backing up the guy in the stands. We wanted it done in a very low profile way. But there's steps that local leagues can take to try and curb these situations from taking place.
Ideally, Jack, that's would be the preferable option to get the site administrator, but oftentimes in high school ball, JV,
Right.
lower little league, the coaches are the site administrator.
Yep. And that's why, again, in the state of New Jersey, I know they have to go through training. I believe a lot of this, you need heads of umpires association and coaches association, athletic directors to get together, to come together to have solutions. And I believe the coaches, what you said earlier, Jim, this comes through the coaches. The parents will listen to what the coaches have to say. Okay, at a parent meeting, guidelines. This must be the case. And I think a lot of coaches, when they go out after an umpire, don't realize how they're inciting their own parents. There's a lot of coaches that might go out to you and say, Jim, what did you have there? And then they might say, Jim, I'm going to raise my finger to show my second baseman that I love him. I'm going to turn around and go back to the dugout. Meanwhile, the parents in the stands are infuriated, okay? And then they're following you to the car after the game when the coach was just showing his second baseman that he loved him for 5 seconds and was trying to go about it in a decent way. It's the parents don't realize, what they're doing to get rid of officials from working these games.
Absolutely. And the comparison I gave to those two coaches, the games that I worked, was just striking to me personally. I was just so impressed by the one younger coach who was just stellar, respectable. That was a key word, that he was respectable. His voice was lowered. He asked questions. He went into the dugout. He didn't interact with me more than 2 times in that whole baseball game, and he won the game.
Right. That's right. They're the better coaches. It's about mutual respect. Umpires have to respect players, coaches, and parents. Parents, coaches, and players have to respect umpires. You're trying to get mutual respect. Again, there's some people that are just idiots out there, and that's part of the problem. And again, I pulled when I have a boy and 2 girls. Both of my boys played baseball at a very high level, and if I saw them playing for a coach that was an idiot, I pulled them off the team because you could spot it a million miles away. My one son who played for Florida Atlantic University, which is a top 25 team in the nation, he was on one travel team, and in the first game with a coach going after an umpire, I pulled my kid off the team. Why are you pulling your kid? No reason. He's off the team. He's not playing for you. And I could spot it a million miles away because I knew how the rest of it was going to go, but a lot of other parents can't, I guess.
Right. And unfortunately, those are the guys that everybody focuses on, the bad ones. If they see that guy out there on the field interacting, he's blowing things up, and everybody sees it, and then all the kids see it. It's used to be a role model. It used to mean something. When you were a role model, you did good things and positive things. Today, it's just reversed. These role models are guys that go crazy on the field.
It's interesting. When I umpired, what I didn't appreciate is that I started to appreciate because, again, I'm probably one of the few people that's ever been in professional baseball that then played after being a pro umpire, coached after playing. And I realized when I started playing, if my teammates were arguing it with an umpire, a lot of my teammates thought that player was an idiot too. Most umpires think all the players agree with the player yelling at you. They may think he's an idiot too. And when a coach is yelling, there's other coaches, parents that may think that coach is an idiot. When as an umpire, you think all the other coaches are probably looking up to him. That's probably not the case. And I found that very interesting when I started playing. I didn't realize that you guys realized that guy was a jerk too.
Right.
And so that's kind of funny as well.
I spent a lot of time umpiring in the adult leagues, the SMLB, the league that you actually played in,
Right.
and experienced the
People are crazy.
over the top old wannabe. Used maybe played the
Right.
minors for 1 year, and he's up there with the ego that couldn't fit in the
Yeah.
dugout. And he once you dump him, the rest of the team are just. It looks like they're smiling the whole game. Yeah, exactly.
Well, when I was catching, because I was a catcher and the umpires knew me, and I was just because I know as an umpire everybody's a nice guy until something happens. So I realized when something happened, I had to be
Right.
a nice guy, right? And so I remember having a couple pitchers that I knew were surveyors, and I would say to the umpire, I'd say, "All right, Jim, this guy thinks everything's a strike when he's on the mound. I'll try and keep him under control for you, you know." But just be heads up that, and invariably the umpire, well, he better, and I go, "Don't worry, I got it, I got it, I got it. Don't worry, I'll handle it." Make sure that, but you need players like that to do stuff like that. But anyway, the part of it's just baseball, the nature of the game. But everything's getting too out of hand. The hit by when I coached 14-year-olds, I would say to a parent of a kid getting out of line, in 4 or 5 years, if he does this, they're going to be throwing at his head. Now they're throwing at the heads at 13 and 14, which should not be happening. Policing their own, that stuff should not be happening at lower levels either.
My grandson's playing 9, 10-year-old little league, and I get to see the coaches, and honestly, they're younger guys that probably never coached a baseball team before in their life, and I see them wearing the pressure because it's almost like I'm thinking in my mind, these guys believe this is a big time game, and it is anything but that. But yet, when you're a young guy and you're put in that situation, you're not that knowledgeable or educated like we've been talking about that's needed, and you're out there winging it on your own, and so you want to put on the image. I can see where things escalate quickly.
Where I want to take this, though, is I think from a kid's point of view, or whenever officials walk on a field, people want to win. Okay. Whenever two umpires show up, people want to win the game. And I'm good with that. But you can win the game and be competitive and play 100% and not be a jerk.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
totally
key. How do we play 100% and not be a jerk? I'm friends with one major league umpire who will remain nameless, who told me a story when he was in AAA of a shortstop in the Yankees organization that was one of the biggest pain in the asses he ever had. And he went after him. And that player was Derek Jeter. And you're like, that can't be Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter was a class act. And when my umpire friend told me that he confronted his manager about it, the manager said, "I have no idea. I'm telling you, you'll never have a problem with that guy again." And my umpire friend said, "I don't know what happened, what he said to Derek Jeter, but he was in the big leagues for 25 years and he was the nicest guy in the world." Okay. He must have got religion at some point. So a Derek Jeter being an exemplary person, playing hard and being a good person, that's what you want to be like. And he had to learn, is my point. He's a minor league player getting out of line, and at some point along the way, he learned. Okay.
Yeah.
I had
absolutely.
Paul O'Neill in the minor leagues. Paul O'Neill never learned. Okay. Paul O'Neill as an announcer is killing umpires on TV, not realizing he may be literally killing umpires at the amateur level or assaulting them because of his disrespect that he has for officials. He may say he respects them, but he doesn't. And that's a hard-nosed player who was a jerk on the field. Okay. Derek Jeter, a hard-nosed player who was not a jerk on the field.
Right.
Okay. You don't have to be that way. And I would point that out to my kids. Okay. That's who you want to emulate, not this person. And
absolutely, Jack.
That too. Okay.
That's a great story, great application. Speaking of not being jerks, I looked at the cover of your book, and you've got a testimonial from Ed Hickok, a retired 28-year MLB umpire, and I'd like to read it. What Ed said. It says, "I've known Jack Oujo for over 40 years, since 1983. And all that time, one thing has never changed. Jack shows up with heart, grit, and purpose, whether it's in business, family, or with people lucky enough to call him a friend. Jack and I have shared many conversations about the life in the minors, the cramped cars, the rundown motels, the low pay, and the constant pressure to perform at the highest level. There was nothing glamorous about those years, but Jack gave everything he had, and he never lost his passion for baseball or his belief in doing the job the right way. What I admire most, and what I believe his book, I'm Smarter Than an Umpire, reveals, Jack's consistency. He's the same man I met in 1983, honest, grounded, loyal, and quietly relentless. Titles or promotions never defined him, but his character did. That's a tribute that man laid on you, and having this interview on this podcast with you, Jack. I can tell you it was simply an honor to be part of this.
Thank you, Jim. If I have 1 minute, do you have 1 minute for me to tell a quick story?
Oh, absolutely.
If not, I'll rest. All right. The title of the book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire. This book was originally called Plan B because it's the original. It's about reinventing yourself. And I don't want umpires to be insulted by that title. The title comes from a game I had in AAA my last year, about a month before the season ended. I had a game at the old Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha, Nebraska, attended by American League Supervisor of Umpires Dick Butler. I did not know he was there. When the game ended, I asked him for an evaluation. I've been here for 8 years. What do you guys think? And he said, Jack, I think you called a really good game. I think you only missed one pitch during the game. To be honest with you, I think you're too smart to be an umpire. And when I wrote that chapter, the editor, the publisher goes, that's the title of your book right there. And I was like, oh my God, the umpires are going to be mad at me. But I've gotten, if you go on Amazon, I think there's 60, 70 reviews on there. But I've had 7 major league umpires proactively contact me, tell me how much they enjoyed the book and their wives. And so I don't want umpires out there to be thinking that I'm arrogant, because in the book, there's a ton of self-deprecating humor. But that's where that title comes from. And I wanted people to know that.
Thank you for the clarification. I didn't need it personally. I think the title, I think the title is perfect. And it's something that this conversation, I think this conversation is just the beginning of something better and moving forward and addressing this issue. And I think it'll empower a lot of people. And thank you for coming on the show. I've got our app, Baseball Rules in Black and White. We've simplified the rules of baseball. We've got MLB. We've got NFHS rule sets on it. It's got videos of plays. And so anyway, I'm going to give you a link so you can put that on your phone. And I want to thank you, Jack, for giving us your time today. It's been wonderful.
Jim, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I could have spoken to you for hours. It was a lot of fun, and thank you for having me on.
Well, don't worry. I'll be having you back.
Good.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Jim. Have a great day.
This podcast is brought to you by the #1 rated Baseball Rules in Black and White app. It's the only baseball rules app with videos, multiple rule sets, simplified rule language, and the best part, it's extremely affordable. Download it today or learn more at baseballrulesinblackandwhite.com. That wraps up another fun-filled edition of the Umpires in Black and White podcast. You can watch or share this amazing episode again on our Baseball Rules in Black and White YouTube channel, or go to baseballrulesinblackandwhite.com. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.